Hey, hello everybody. I was watching a YouTube video. I like watching the updates from a pastor named JD Farag. He's out of Hawaii. It's a Calvary Chapel ministry, and he does weekly prophecy updates, and his teaching is very good as well. And so today I was watching, and he was read a note from somebody had emailed in or made a Facebook post or whatever talking about how they had just become pre-trib believer based on watching his updates, and he was all encouraged. And he pointed to the First Thessalonian 4 passages about the rapture, and he started making a point which I think is really good, and I want to take it even a little bit further because I think it says something. And if you've seen some of the videos on this channel, you know that I'm a pre-trib rapture person, but extend grace to anybody that doesn't agree with that. That's what makes sense scripturally for me. And so let me kind of go through and make a little bit of an argument. First, the setting. As we all know, the letter to the Thessalonians was one of the first, if not the first, epistles that Paul wrote. And in First Thessalonians, we've got the doctrine of the rapture being defined. And so let's just read through verses 13 through 18 and then make some comments. But we do not want you to be uninformed, brothers, about those who are asleep, that you may not grieve as others do who have no hope. For since we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so, through Jesus, God will bring with him those who have fallen asleep. For this we declare to you by a word from the Lord, that we who are alive, who are left until the coming of the Lord, will not precede those who have fallen asleep. For the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a cry of a command, with the voice of the archangel, and with the sound of a trumpet of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive, who are left, will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so we will always be with the Lord. Therefore encourage one another with these words. And the point he was getting to, they said sealed the deal, was the last verse. Therefore encourage one another with these words. And the broader point was really that this group of believers was anxious about people that had just died that were believers in Christ. And if you remember, Paul, well, read the passages. Paul himself was unsure of when the second coming was, as was the original apostles who even asked Jesus, is this the time you're going to restore the kingdom? Paul lived in this expectation of the second coming. And this passage points that out as well, as he's explaining to the Thessalonian believers that, hey, the people that died here recently in Christ, that he's telling them that they're going to be raised first, and then when we're changed, we'll be caught together with them in the air. And this point I've missed up until right now, which is if you put yourself in the day of Paul and listen to what Paul is explaining, he's got a current expectation of the rapture occurring, because he's explained to the people, you don't have to worry about your recent relatives that have died, because they're going to be caught up first, and then you're going to be caught up into the clouds. And the point is, and other people have made this one, that this last verse in 18, therefore encourage one another with these words, the argument is, how could that be encouraging if it was a mid-trib or post-trib rapture scenario? Because really what Paul ought to be doing is saying, hey, 100-pound flaming hailstones are going to drop on your head, but feel happy. Eventually, whoever's left will be raptured. That isn't the argument. He isn't arguing that when you're seeing your family slaughtered, you know that you're getting close. His argument is to take heart that even the dead in Christ are going to get raised, and then you're going to be translated into the air. So it's an uplifting passage the way it's written. The other point that it brings is, you recognize in all of these, go to 1 Corinthians 15 and the rest, none of them, Paul wasn't running around prepping people. If he had the earnest expectation that the Lord could return at any point, there was no prepping program being described in the Bible. He wasn't running around saying, go store up water, which they lived in a desert. That would be the first thing you would do. He wasn't saying, go dehydrate some lamb and hide it away because you're going to have to make it through the 7 years. There was no prepping message to this, and yet he had a current expectation that he might be raptured or that the Lord may return. So it's going to be a short video here. It was just a real strong point, and it knocked me over that it's got to be a pre-trib rapture scenario from that angle, because there was no program of prepping going on. There was no water storage message in this thing. Matter of fact, it was uplifting message about how even your recently deceased relatives are going to precede you into the clouds. And if you put yourself back in first century, in time of Paul, Paul was eagerly expecting that at any moment, that's where the doctrine of imminence is born from, is that they even had an earnest expectation that he would return in their lifetime. And so the fact that we don't see prepping messages and dig a hole in the ground and shelter yourself because there's going to be extreme heat, and there's none of that going on in the Bible. And so I think it's just one more real solid indication that there's a pre-trib rapture. And so hopefully this message is uplifting for those of you who are pre-trib believers. And if you're not a pre-trib believer, I thank you for at least watching these videos anyways, because I know I've done several now on the rapture. So thank you.